1460 WVOX.
Stay tuned now for the Racing for Heroes radio show with host Brett Morash on 1460 WVOX.
All right, good morning, Racing for Heroes fans. So excited to be here. Brought to you by RFH Tactical Nobility, our sponsor, and here on 1460 AM up in New York, or streaming live, WVOX.com. So we're going to jump right in. We actually have a guest who's returning. It's Ian Bradbury, former Canadian Army, and now doing peacekeeping around the world, and is here to talk to us today about some important stuff that you may want to know. So, Ian, you're on the line.
Hey, good morning, Brett. How are you this morning?
I'm doing great. How's Canada? Because New Rochelle, New York feels like Canada right now.
Well, it's definitely chilly up here, but I tell you, the ice is nice out on the canal.
Oh, is there ice on the canal? Wow, that is cold.
Yeah, there is, but it's the world's longest outdoor skating rink. Fantastic spot this time of year.
All right. I don't know if I'm going to travel up there because it's a little too cold for me, but I think that those who are brave will go up there. So that's amazing.
Cheers, brother.
So, Ian, let's jump right into it. I obviously follow what you do, and obviously there has been extremism going on in North America, but it's really on both poles. And I think that that's one thing that I think is important for the listeners, is that it's not just a one-sided thing. It's dealing with extremism in all its forms.
Absolutely. Dealing with extremism in all its forms is actually quite critical for today. Most recently, my violent extremism or strategies against violent extremism team took a five-eyes look, Canada, US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, at the current state of counter-extremism, including counter-terrorism prevention and various types of counter-programming.
Yeah.
And, we found some pretty interesting stuff there, Brett. It's ultimately it's very increasingly problematic for us to fight against this. And, the technological advances that we've seen over the past 20 years have not only enhanced the awareness of the threats, but it's also extended the reach of the nefarious actors that are looking to manipulate people. So, and then this complexity has been further increased by, the large number of platforms that are out there, social media and technologies, as well as a large and diverse range of threat actors. And, that range, it's not just the left-right political, but it's, it covers everything from, different cultural extremists, different types of ideological extremists, accelerationists, as well as, people who are extremists based on mythology, let alone anything real.
Well, and we saw that in, let's say, the war going on in Syria with ISIS, right? I mean, ISIS had its own Instagram, for example. And so, where 30 years ago, that level of outreach was not in the hands of extremist groups. Now it's just part of something they do, and they're more adept and agile than I think nation states are able to counter it.
Definitely. As all these things increase, everything from new platforms to new channels and new places, these are just all avenues that nefarious actors can exploit. And, if we think just back 20 years ago, and we had cell phones. Cell phones with cameras were just coming onto the market, and smartphones were just around the corner. So, the modern space is a lot more difficult for us to address than it was previously. And like I said, the diversity of actors is making it even more of a challenge for us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. And I think that that's actually one of the things I think we want to dive into here, right? Is that, there are groups out there that are they're trying to help, but they may not be helping in the way that is bringing people to the center.
Yeah, well, there's definitely some challenges in that space, and we touched on that in the white paper as well. And in some cases, it's people that are very well-meaning and they have some, very positive interest in what they're trying to do in the space, and just due to perhaps a bit of naivety, a bit of inexperience, as well as there's a bit of lack of training, leads them down some odd paths. And then there's also times when some more large organizations sort of run afoul of it. And an example of that it was just this week brought to me And you know me, I've sort of rallied against a lot of this stuff for a number of years.
Yeah, you bet.
But this example was brought to me, and ultimately they were using some digital systems to try to, detect right-wing extremists.
Okay.
Activities online, and they were trying to provide them with de-escalation content to try to take it down.
So wait, let me ask what that exactly means for the listener. So what you're saying is that if, let's say, I'm a right-wing extremist and I'm I'm predisposed to that, let's say, I log in, I'm looking for some sort of content, that AI, artificial intelligence, redirects me to something else. Is that basically what you're saying?
Yeah, well, that's my knowledge of it, or at least what was presented to me. And the way it works is if you were doing some type of search, it would find a way to interject some alternate content, something to try to steer you away, right?
Okay.
And the problem that was brought to me on this one was the fact of that the content that these individuals were being redirected to was actually from an individual who creates some pretty concerning agitation propaganda and has some pretty concerning links. Now, the actual video itself that they were using wasn't too bad, but the alternate content that's produced by that individual definitely has some very serious concerns to it. And I can't help but wonder from my position and the way that we look at it across the entirety of the spectrum of threat, whether or not this had potentially even opposite results rather than the positive results, because we've definitely seen a rise in right-wing extremism across North America, not just U.S. but Canada as well.
Yep.
Over the past couple of years, and online content consumption is a big part of it. And if these people that are vulnerable to those messages are consuming agitation content, there's some pretty serious questions that need to be asked there.
Yeah, and do you think that there's any nation-state actors that are working behind the scenes to help push that?
Definitely, most definitely. We've seen it across accelerationism, and you and I have had a couple background discussions on that. But Russia's out actively involved in it. China's out there actively involved in it. There's some other players that are out there actively involved in it, and they look at the natural fissures that exist across society, and they look at who the players are that are putting the wedges in those fissures, and they'll pump them up and they'll amplify them, and they'll even drive people towards that content. So we've got to be really careful in what we're doing, especially when it comes to unintended consequences.
Yes.
And that comes back to our discussion about well-meaning, is that you may have very good interest in what you're doing, but if your scope and your consideration of the threat spectrum is extremely narrow, you might not even know that you're causing unintended negative impacts elsewhere. And that's one of the things that I really want people to look at is look at the wider spectrum of what's going on, and how if you add a little bit of weight to the teeter-totter over here, which one's going to lift up where else? So we just got to be more conscious about that.
And how would you recommend, though, let's say a company that is doing that, that's trying to do good, how would you recommend that they approach that then, or at least monitor themselves so that they don't have that same issue where they're providing content that is making the situation worse?
Well, I think this applies to the entire tech industry right now, and the entire online industry. We have to have some independent brokers on what's getting done in this space, and independent reviewers that can, look at what's happening and, review these types of things with a really critical and non-biased eye. That would be one step. The next step would be really checking the work that you're doing, having multiple processes in place that you can verify and ensure that you're doing things right. And if there's a space where you're not quite sure, there's a pretty darn big network out there of multi-domain specialists that aren't just in that traditional, say right-wing extremism or Islamist extremism space, who have a lot to contribute to it, and they could definitely help out in this.
Well, that's good. And where would I find a resource like that if I was like looking for it on the internet?
Well, there's a whole bunch. My organization does work through our Strategies Against Violent Extremism group.
Okay.
Tech Against Terrorism is out there doing pretty good work. There's
Tech
a number of different partnerships that are out there that just doing really great work. So, if you do some searches, online for counter violent extremism programs, prevent programs, U-turn programs, there's a lot of really neat stuff out there that you can see of what's getting done. And it's just, we need to make sure that we have all the checks and balances in place. And anytime that we do identify something that maybe is not going the way that we wish, just be able to rapidly, address it and make the changes necessary to be doing what's right.
Gotcha. And in for your website, what is the website for First NAF?
Ours is www.one as in the number NAEF.org.
Okay, great. And I'm sure that there's a lot of other content on there. I mean, obviously, I've looked at that many times. That will be, I think, of interest of all of our listeners, because as I said before, extremism comes in all different forms, and it's not exclusive to the right. It's pervasive, though.
Oh, very much so. On our media page, we do have our most recent white paper that like I said, did take a good look at this for the Five Eyes nations. And, hey, if anybody after reading that, please forward us any questions, comments, anything. We want to spur the discussion. We want to make sure that people are taking that wider consideration and really considering the potential unintended consequences.
Gotcha.
We got to get it right, Brett, or things aren't looking too good for us.
Oh, for sure. And your white paper is available on your website, correct?
Yes, it is. Downloadable at www.1naf.org/media.
Gotcha. And people can share that and comment, and I think email you directly too, which is fantastic. And I know you'll be responsive. And I hope that people out there listening today do take a look at this and then really think about the content that they're absorbing when they're on their internet searches at night.
Absolutely. Be critical of everything, triple check everything, and, develop your own mindset on things and develop your own understandings. That would be my call. For
sure. Well, Ian, as always, thank you again. I know we don't have time to talk about you destroying a diesel engine again, but I know our listeners enjoyed that story from last time when you were overseas. But thank you so much, Ian. Have a great day.
Hey, cheers, brother. Thank you very much. You too. Take care to everybody listening.
All right, my friend. So Racing for Heroes fans, that was Ian Bradbury from First NAF. Just, again, go on his website, www.1naf.org. Check out what they have to say. I think you will be just absolutely stunned and impressed with what is going on out there. So our next guest is Kevin Lambert, and he works at NEADS, world-class service dogs, and he's the program development administrator and a veteran of the U.S. Army, and he's going to talk to us today about service dogs for the veteran community and everything from like how they train them all the way to how they place and train the veterans to work as a service dog veteran team. Kevin, are you on the line?
I am, Brett. Yes, thank you very much for having me.
Oh, thank you. And how's the weather up in Mass? I think it's probably similar to here in New York.
It's snowing and cold, but that's normal for us.
I think you live in the Worcester snow belt, is my recollection of where NEADS is.
Yeah, NEADS is definitely there. I'm a little up closer to the New Hampshire border myself, but same difference, but having been stationed in Fairbanks, Alaska,
Roger.
The winters will never be so tough.
For sure. Yeah, that's true. Like if you were stationed in Fairbanks. And what did you do in the Army when you were up there? What was your MOS?
I was an 11 Bravo, so I was an infantry soldier with the 172nd Stryker Brigade combat team.
Gotcha. And you actually deployed, was it to Iraq with the 172nd?
Yeah, we deployed to Mosul, Iraq in August of 2005. We were supposed to come home August of 2006. We were the first, beginning phase of the troop surge. So half our guys were back in Alaska. My group is still waiting to leave Iraq, and we were woken up and told we were being extended. So we spent an extra 4 months down in the lovely area of Baghdad.
Oh, that's the best, getting extended on deployment. We all love that.
Yeah. Hey, at least they lied to us and said, we'll tell you when you're going home in 2 weeks, pretty much every 2 weeks for 4 months.
Well, my favorite was in the Navy. They used to give us steak and lobster for dinner, and you knew something was up as soon as that was what was on the menu.
Yeah, every once in a while we'd go to a bigger base that got that pleasure, but we were mostly out on fobs, and we never really got that.
Roger that. So, but you spent time in the Army. You obviously deployed, and then you came back. And what did you do? What was your transition job?
Yeah, so I worked for the state of Massachusetts, running several community-based peer-to-peer programs, ranging from suicide prevention, jail diversion, homelessness and housing first programs, and helping veterans transition into the higher education facilities.
Oh, wow, that's pretty impressive. And were you working for like the Commissioner of Veteran Services for the state? Is that where you kind of were embedded?
I was, yeah. At the time I came home, it was actually Secretary Tom Kelly, who was a Medal of Honor recipient from Vietnam.
Of course.
And then it transitioned to Secretary Coleman Nee, who I worked for the majority of time.
I actually taught ROTC at Holy Cross, and Captain Kelly was one of our alumni. So I have a place in my heart for him. I heard he's doing pretty well.
Yeah, last I heard he was, and he's truly an amazing person to work for. So
no, listen, anyone who used a Navy boat to use flamethrowers and all sorts of other crazy stuff that if you read his Medal of Honor citation, it's unbelievable. And you just continue to fight even though he was wounded. Just a great human and a great warrior.
Absolutely.
So tell us about NEADS, World-Class Service Dogs.
Yeah, so NEADS World-Class Service Dogs is a nonprofit organization. So we started back in 1976, and we were the first service dog organization on the East Coast. So truly a pioneer of service dogs in this area. We're a charter member of Assistance Dogs International. So when we talk about veterans and service dogs, it's important to note that not only do they get the service dog completely free of charge from us, which costs about $50,000 for us to train. Because we're accredited through Assistance Dogs International, the veteran can also be eligible for the service dog benefit from the VA, which will cover the health insurance for the life of the dog.
Wow.
Huge benefit. Since 1976, we've placed over 1,800 service dogs with clients with disabilities. We were the first organization to be invited down to Walter Reed and talk about service dogs and the needs of our wounded service members and veterans. In 2006, we formed our Service Dogs for Veterans program. And since then, we've served over 162 veterans and placed them with world-class service dogs, again, completely free of charge. We train primarily purpose-bred black and yellow Labrador retrievers.
Okay.
So you talked about their training, and it is top-notch. They receive training for 18 to 22 months before being matched to a client.
Oh, wow.
And they're trained in about 50 to 60 tasks and commands.
And my memory of that was when I had spoken to the team up there a number of years ago, is that a lot of those dogs are actually trained by life-serving offenders in the prison system.
So we have had a prison partnership for a couple of decades now. And unfortunately, with COVID, that's been put on hold just because the prisons are all on lockdown. So we have, I think, 5 or 6 prisons in Massachusetts, including the federal facility, and then J.J. Moran in Rhode Island. And it's quite a life-changing experience for both the inmate handlers and all of us involved in the program. It's really a special and unique part that we hope to get back to soon.
Yeah, and I remember one of the upsides of that actually was you gave a life prisoner something to live for. And so it actually made them less violent or less prone to violence than they otherwise would be sitting in prison for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and not all of them are life prisoners. So there's many of them who, will serve it's all state prisons. So they're longer term sentences, but, some of them will get out several years later and can really kind of transition. And who has something to put on their resume getting out of prison, that'll be good for a job. Typically.
Oh, that's amazing. And then
so it really is great.
No, because I worked for a Marine colonel when I was at the U.S. Naval War College, and he eventually retired to Uxbridge, not too far from where you all are. And he said they got to do, they would call it a prison break, but they would get the dog out for the weekend, and then they bring him and socialize him out of town. Can you describe that?
Yeah, so the dogs usually would be in prison Monday through Friday, and we have this amazing group of weekend puppy raisers that would pick up the dog every Friday and bring it home, teach them, socialization skills, home etiquette, bring them out to, ride the train, go to a ball game, go to the supermarket, to really socialize the dogs to all those sights, sounds, smells, things that they'll see, when they're out with a client. If they just stayed in prison 24/7 for 18 to 22 months, it'd be a lot harder to make that transition out.
Right, then you'd have to help them transition from being prisoners. I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, it's important, at NEADS, it's not only our service dogs that are world-class, but all of our staff, from the breeding staff, trainers, client services, our volunteers, all truly make this organization not only, create the best service dog out there, but also the best overall support and experience for our clients. So
Gotcha.
It really is such a unique program to be a part of.
And what is the process then? So like once the dog is trained, and I didn't ask like what type of skills that they can do, but how do they pair them up with a particular veteran?
Yeah, so the match process is really complicated. So I usually interview all the veterans that come through the program, and Katie Ostroff interviews the majority of civilian clients and some of the veterans as well. So we sit down and we do up to a 3-hour interview with them and really ask them questions about their entire life, all of their not only needs around their disabilities, but what's their family life like, what's school or work, or how much do they travel? Are they a big world person, small world person? All this comes into play with matching them, not only, a world-class dog that's going to help with their specific disabilities, but also be a great match for their life. And you asked about some of the tasks. So, we have dogs that are trained for service dogs for physical disabilities and for hearing loss. We also have a program for veterans with PTSD, so I can kind of run through those real quickly for you if you want. So the world-class service dogs that are placed with veterans with physical disabilities, again, are all trained in 50 to 60 tasks and commands. They can range from helping retrieve and drop items. They can turn light switches on and off, open doors, handicap accessible doors, or doors with handles and a tug rope. They can even retrieve items from a refrigerator, and they actually remember to close the refrigerator. Like
that's important. My kids don't do that.
And they're also trained to bark on command. So an interesting thing people are amazed by is you'll never hear a NEADS dog out there barking unless they were given the speak command, which can really be an incredible addition to somebody who may need to get some help, and maybe their spouse or family member is down in the basement and can't hear them. They can give the dog the speak command, and the dog will bark repetitively for them.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
We recently had a veteran client speak at one of our meetings, and something he said gives me chills. And he said, not only did this dog give me my independence back, but he also gave me back my freedom.
That's amazing.
And that's such a special thing. The hearing dogs for veterans with hearing loss, alert to their name being called, the fire or smoke alarm going off, doorbells, door knocks. Something people don't think about, and one of the tasks is alert to the keys dropping. So, if you're somebody walking through the supermarket and drop your keys in aisle 5, and you didn't hear them drop, you're mid-August in the middle of Boston, you get all your groceries, you're in the car, and where are your keys? Not only do you have to go hunt them down, you have to go try to communicate with this, 16-year-old at the front desk who doesn't know how to communicate with anybody. Never mind a person with hearing loss.
We have to text them.
Having one of our world-class service dogs can alert you to those keys dropping and prevent that from happening.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And because I remember I even heard things like the dog will go ahead into like a darkened room and like turn the lights on, like those sorts of things.
So that I was going to talk about that with our trauma assistance dog program. We were the first program in the country specifically for veterans with PTSD. Fortunately, I was in the right place at the right time. I was actually the first veteran they served under that program under the research aspect of it.
Okay.
It's great that I know the program from both ends. So we placed over 60 dogs with veterans with PTSD since we started that program. They can help ease, veterans' anxiety, overcome challenges with crowds or other triggers like loud noises. Veterans can use tactile exercises, including deep breathing while petting the dog, that they're taught during training as a common technique. As you noted, the dogs can enter a room and turn on a light switch if entering a dark space is tough. And they can actually be trained in up to 3 different rooms that they can learn and be commanded to go ahead and turn the light switch on for that individual.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, it's truly awesome. And, we always tell veterans it's important to note, the dog is not the magic cure. It's a great tool to really help you. Therapy and other supportive services are not only needed, but part of the criteria. Unfortunately, right now, we are not accepting new applications for that program. However, for our physical disabilities and hearing loss program under Service Dogs for Veterans. We are accepting and seeking applications from veterans nationwide, and they can visit our website at www.neads.org for more information or to get in touch with me directly.
And if you want to make a donation or buy some of your amazing swag I saw in your store, like NEADS pajama pants and the best sweatshirt ever, I think was the other one I saw in there. So, and I'm sure your friend and my friend, Kathy Zamias, would be happy if people were making donations through there.
Absolutely. You're better at that part than I am. So,
well, that's why you're an operator and you're helping veterans get lined up. So that's amazing. And we only have about 45 seconds left. As you know, this is Racing for Heroes. Tell us your car story.
Yeah. So, I was with the Striker Brigade, so I got a ton of stories about, chasing down people at 50 miles an hour who thought they could do a drive-by because we're a 22-ton vehicle. But I thought I'd share one about a wannabe race car driver.
All right, 30 seconds.
Who in 2011 in an F-150 actually ran over myself and my service dog after a Bruins game.
Oh, no.
Ended up breaking my hip socket and my tailbone. The important thing to note is that, the service dog wasn't hurt, and throughout all of it, the ambulance ride, the hospital stay, she was by my side 100% of the time. Wow. And really, our service dogs for our veterans become like that brother or sister in arms. So loyal and dedicated and truly just one of a kind. She didn't miss a beat through any of that.
Well, that's the best advertisement you could ever give. And thank you again, Kevin. And that concludes our show here for Racing for Heroes for this week. We'll be back next week. So thanks, and have a chance. Take a look at us, www.racingforheroes.org. Thanks, everyone.